Unbelievable twist. Sister disinvites me, then discovers shocking truth, losing her 2.8M home. The text from Jessica cut through Sarah like a shard of ice. I need to prioritize more influential relationships, it read. A family reunion was coming up, yet here was her sister, glossy, successful, everything Sarah wasn't, casting her aside without a second thought. Jessica, who sipped wine in the lavish circle of influential people, couldn't possibly understand the struggle of working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. Sarah stared at the screen, disbelief coursing through her. Did their bond mean so little? Peering at her 2 children, Riley and Max, Sarah forced herself to shake off the sting. She was determined to rise above the pain. But how? The unease clawed at her. Should she send a retort? A cold reminder that family should come before status? No, that would only drag her deeper into the abyss of despair. Instead, she turned her focus inward, marshalling the energy that had long been used for self-doubt into something productive. The neighborhood park needed revitalization. A mere patch of grass where stray dogs roamed and children dared not play. Perhaps this was her chance to create something meaningful. A legacy for her children that didn't involve a constant comparison to Jessica's gilded world. She contacted local university mentors, hesitant yet thrilled by the potential collaboration. No more hiding in the shadows, she whispered to herself. But the excitement rapidly morphed into anxiety. What if she failed? What if, in her determination, she exposed her pathetic financial struggles? Could she actually inspire change in a community that seemed content in its complacency? The terror crept in, whispering those familiar doubts. It was hard for Sarah to trust herself. She had spent years in the shadows, clawing through her insecurities, always the underdog in her sister's light. As weeks passed, Sarah put her heart into the project, pushing past her fears, learning to organize events, rally volunteers. She found a certain thrill in the accomplishments, the encouraging nods from neighbors, the municipal leaders who began to take notice. But as her star dimmed, Jessica's was blazing brighter than ever. A sleek car, a stunning open house every day was another reminder of the divide. Was Jessica happy? Or just pretending to be? The speculation twisted in Sarah's gut, each moment a cocktail of envy and longing. Then the call came. It was Jessica, unexpectedly stuttering through a request she needed help. That familiar mixture of resentment and longing welled inside Sarah. She could yell, let her bitterness spill over. Still beneath that was a flicker of compassion. Their meeting was inevitable, a clash built from years of familial wounds. As Sarah prepared herself, the tension grew. Could they bridge the chasm of resentment? Or had their rivalry run too deep? Before they could meet, panic struck. Whispers of Jessica's financial troubles echoed back to Sarah. Would she find a sister brought low and humbled? Just then, while reading the evening news, Sarah stumbled upon a revelation. Jessica's $2.8 million home facing foreclosure. It made Sarah's stomach twist. Here she was, struggling just to make rent, while Jessica's perfect life began to unravel. Torn between family and ambition, an agonizing question took shape. Should she step in to help or let Jessica face the consequences of her own hubris? The weight of the decision pressing against Sarah's chest grew unbearable. Just moments before their meeting, a thought struck her: would it ultimately cost Jessica her dignity if she chose the path of kindness? A moral dilemma like no other surged internally, leaving Sarah teetering on the edge of something that could either heal or inflict deeper wounds. And then Jessica's last-minute shocking development erupted. A revelation that could change everything, hanging between the sisters like an electric current. Uncertainty buzzed heavily in the air, the pull of destiny drawing them into a confrontation fraught with unresolved emotions. What would the future hold, and at what cost? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the empty park, an area once alive with laughter, now overrun with weeds and neglect. Sarah took a deep breath, a rush of determination pushing her forward. Today would be the day. Today she would meet Jessica. The turmoil of emotions that had built up in her consumed her thoughts: resentment, pity, longing boiling just beneath the surface. Riley and Max were safely at a neighbor's house for the day. Alone, Sarah felt the weight of solitude, her confrontation with her sister hanging heavily in the air. She glanced at the park's abandoned swings, contemplating the legacy she had begun for her children, moments that would hopefully shape them into better versions of herself, far removed from their mother's struggles. As the appointed meeting time neared, each passing minute seemed to deepen her inner conflict. Jessica's call had ignited a bittersweet curiosity. The sister who had flaunted her wealth and elegance was now asking for help. Ironically, it stirred an urge in Sarah to confront the very foundations of their relationship. In Jessica's potential need, there was an opening, a channel for both vulnerability and perhaps a genuine connection. Yet was it enough to quell the years of envy, the hurt born from sibling rivalry? Arriving at the cafe where they agreed to meet, Sarah tried to settle her racing heart. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, masking the anxiety that hung over her like a fog. She found a secluded table by a window, a strategic choice allowing her to observe Jessica's entrance. When she finally spotted her sister, Sarah's breath caught. The polished perfection was still there, but now marred by shadows under her eyes. The false gleam of confidence dimmed, revealing the chaos underlying that crafted facade. "Hey," Jessica ventured, sliding into the seat across from Sarah, her voice strained and oddly tentative. That single word, spoken in a tone Sarah had never heard before, cut through the tension like a knife. For a moment they simply looked at each other, the weight of shared history palpable. "Why did you really call?" Sarah asked, the question hanging in the air, thick with unspoken accusations. Jessica hesitated, choosing her words with caution. "I need some advice. Things have changed," she finally said, her eyes filled with a mix of vulnerability and defiance. A flicker of pride ignited within Sarah. Here was an opportunity, perhaps a chance for redemption in their fractured relationship. But doubts nipped at her heels. Was she ready to extend a hand when so many years of competition filled their past? What if Jessica's downfall only brought more resentment to the surface? "I read about the foreclosure," Sarah blurted out, unable to suppress her impulse. "You're having financial trouble?" Jessica's face reddened, a fleeting moment of vulnerability before she changed her posture slightly, as if preparing for battle. "It's complicated. I made choices, mistakes. But I don't need pity, Sarah. I need clarity." Something in Jessica's tone sparked old feelings, resentment, and determination mingled into something more resilient. "What are you willing to do?" Sarah challenged, her voice steady, pushing against the urge to retreat. And just like that, the meeting shifted. The air throbbed with a hybrid of confrontation and potential understanding. Could they dig out the roots of their rivalry, and in doing so discover their sisterhood anew? As the conversation unfolded, something else began to surface. Their lives, once thought so divergent, drew closer together as they confronted shared fears and uncertainties, each revelation surfacing memories of their childhood and dreams long buried. Sarah felt the tension shift, the intricate health of their relationship hanging in the balance as uncertainty enveloped them. Would this be the moment they bridged their chasm, or were they merely poised to clash again, locked in a battle of pride? And without warning, just as they began to tentatively engage in each other's realities, Jessica placed a hand on the table, her eyes burning with an unexpected intensity. "I've been thinking, what if we join forces to create something together? Something bigger than both of us?" The proposition spun like a whirlwind in Sarah's mind. Was this the turning point they both craved, or simply a deceptive lure masking deeper wounds? A profound decision loomed now, one that could reshape their futures irrevocably. The chatter of the cafe swelled around them, but Sarah felt only the weight of the moment. The path ahead unfolded, yet one haunting question lingered: had their rivalry finally morphed into true partnership? Or was this merely another empty promise veiled in desperation? The coffee shop's ambient noise faded into a dull roar, muffling the conflict spiraling in Sarah's mind as she processed Jessica's unexpected proposal. Her heart raced, caught between her well-founded skepticism and the tantalizing possibility of forging a partnership that could redefine not only their relationship but their lives. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Sarah managed to ask, her voice cautious, yet tinged with curiosity. The idea of aligning their strengths felt foreign, even alluring. She had spent years building her own identity, learning how to navigate challenges without resorting to Jessica's gilded means. Jessica leaned forward, her expression shifting from defiance to earnestness. "Think about it, Sarah. We have complementary skills. I can leverage my connections in the business world, and you understand what people need. You've always had that instinct." The compliment was unexpected, and it triggered a flicker of pride within Sarah. Being recognized for her skill in understanding others, her empathy, it was like a door suddenly cracked open, allowing a breath of fresh air into the suffocating tension that had shrouded them for so long. This could be a breakthrough, but Sarah's instincts still warned her of the emotional quicksand lurking beneath the surface. "And you think we can just merge our lives?" Sarah asked, bewilderment mingled with intrigue. She envisioned the projects she had once thought impossible, the nonprofit ideas unable to break through due to lack of resources and connections. Yet, what if they were suddenly viable? "It wouldn't be easy," Jessica admitted, biting her lower lip as flashes of vulnerability cut through her polished exterior. "But if we can learn to trust each other, it could work. I can't do this alone anymore. Not after everything." Sarah leaned back, allowing the weight of her sister's words to sink in. Familiar feelings of resentment lurked beneath the surface, a reminder of every slight and every comparison that had haunted her throughout their lives. Yet uncertainty shaped her thoughts as well. Could partnership mean reconciliation? This was both a chance and a risk. What's the catch? Sarah shifted her posture, mentally preparing to confront potential pitfalls. History between them screamed caution, and she could feel the gravitational pull of her instincts cautioning her against this leap. Jessica's gaze flickered with apprehension. "I don't have all the answers. I just know I need to do something. And if I crash and burn, well, at least I won't be by myself." The implication was clear. Beneath her confidence lay fear, and internal conflict raged in Sarah. Could she step into this stressful arena, risking not only her stability but allowing herself to invite chaos back into her life? She had worked relentlessly to regain control, to construct a life for her children free from the emotional volatility that had defined their upbringing. "What about the past?" Sarah ventured, finally addressing the elephant in the room. "We've spent our whole lives trying to one-up each other. What makes you think we can change that now?" A flicker of anger flashed in Jessica's eyes, quickly replaced by resignation. "Maybe because I'm tired of being the bad guy in our story, and maybe I want you to be my sister again." The words settled thickly between them, saturating the air with the tension of unmeasured years. Could vulnerability truly override the years spent in competition? Sarah could sense the potential for growth within this exchange, igniting something inside, a hope, a yearning for connection that had long been buried. "Well, if we're going to do this, it has to be all in. No half measures," Sarah declared, steeling herself for a leap of faith that felt monumental. Her voice resonated with strength, signaling the decisive moment in the evolving narrative of their lives. Jessica nodded, her expression shifting to one of determination, a glimmer of relief passing between their newfound alliance. As the weight of their shared decision pressed heavily on Sarah's chest, she grappled with the echo of uncertainty that remained. Would they rise together or spiral into chaos, tangled once more in webs of mistrust? Just then Jessica's phone buzzed, jolting Sarah from her internal conflict. Before Jessica could respond, the smile on her face faltered, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's my lawyer. We need to discuss the foreclosure again." The air around them crackled violently, shifting once more, and Sarah's heart dropped. The fragility of this deal, this tentative sisterhood, suddenly seemed more precarious than ever. What would that conversation reveal? And would it threaten the whispers of hope that had just begun to form? As Jessica answered the call, Sarah's mind danced with a frenzied realization perhaps their path to redemption was not just about reconciliation but survival. Would they manage to embrace this unforeseen journey? Or would they end up lost in the very uncertainties they hoped to transcend? The phone pressed against Jessica's ear seemed to absorb the silence that followed her muted response. Sarah watched, calculating the weight of that call, imagining the legal jargon wrapped around their future like a noose. What if this was all a facade? Another play in a long history of miscommunication and misunderstandings. The energy in the coffee shop shifted from hopeful to ominous, echoing the tension in their chairs as Jessica listened intently, her brow furrowed. "Okay," Jessica finally said, her voice steady but flat. "Just tell me what my options are." Sarah's heart raced. It was evident that this conversation could open doors they desperately needed or slam them shut entirely. The thought anchored Sarah, reigniting her determination. Through the discord of uncertainty, a commitment to the path ahead flickered back to life, and she leaned forward, eager to hear the implications of Jessica's situation as the call proceeded. Sarah's mind raced ahead with plans and possibilities. Jessica's financial troubles, though daunting, could serve as a catalyst for joint efforts rather than an impediment. Perhaps this was the cue they needed to fuse their distinct abilities, Jessica's resourcefulness and her own empathy. But could she really navigate such turbulent waters while managing her own fears of failure? Right? I'll do whatever I can, Jessica finally concluded, her voice faltering with dread. The conversation lingered between them, thick with unspoken worries, as she hung up and released a heavy breath. They're going to auction the house next month if I can't come up with a plan, Sarah, Jessica admitted, her exterior cracking just a little more as the weight of despair settled in. I don't even know if I'll be able to keep my business once this happens. The gravity of those words pushed Sarah towards resolution. Here was a moment where they could no longer compete. Now their individual survival hinged upon collaboration. This could be the wake-up call we need, Sarah articulated, determined to turn desperation into action. We've talked about merging our skills. Now we have no choice. Jessica seemed caught off guard by Sarah's clarity. You really think we could pull that off? With everything our history, I mean absolutely, Sarah cut through the doubt like a surgeon's scalpel. We have to create a business plan. We can assess what you still have, identify immediate needs, and reach out for help. I don't have connections, but I know people who believe in community and support. Consequently, she envisioned their debut. A brand built around authentic connections, empathy at its core, everything she ever wanted to create but lacked the opportunity or backing. They could launch a nonprofit focused not just on sustaining small businesses, but on mentoring individuals caught in financial peril. The flicker of doubt on Jessica's face narrowed into a line of concentration. But what if we fail? Failure is the risk. But isn't it scarier to abandon this chance? Sarah countered, her purpose sharpening like a blade, each word edging closer to conviction. They both carried burdens, yet if they combined their strength, perhaps they could lift each other. A spark of recognition flickered across Jessica's expression, a breadcrumb of inspiration that finally illuminated the tangled paths they could forge together. Okay, Jessica whispered, the tension in the air shifting. Let us do this. But I need you to know it's going to be hard. I'm not perfect and I can't promise I won't mess this up. I don't expect perfection, Sarah replied, the tenderness of empathy soaking into those words. Let us just focus on being better than we were yesterday. If we do that, we will succeed. As they began to sketch the outline of their new venture, Sarah felt an unfamiliar sense of empowerment wash over her. Not only was she reclaiming her narrative, she was stepping into a leadership role, aware that the commitment to this partnership would demand emotional resilience. The cafe stand faded back into a distant murmur as new plans unfolded, their conversations morphing the enormity of their ordeal into tangible actions. In this moment, Sarah recognized that fear could either bind or liberate them. Then came an unsettling thought. What if their attempts to rise together attracted attention from those who would prefer to see them fail? Jessica's voice jolted her back to the present. What's the next step? Before Sarah could respond, her phone vibrated aggressively in her pocket, a sudden reminder of their external world brimming with complexities. As she glanced at the screen, dread flooded through her. It was her mentor, requesting a meeting to discuss her latest initiative, a potential fork in the road that could redirect everything. Can we put a pin in this? Sarah asked, her head swirling with conflicting commitments and fresh dilemmas. Why? Jessica queried, her brow furrowing deeper. I need to figure out how far I'm willing to go to help us, Sarah replied, uncertainty shadowing her determination. As she stood to answer the call, the underlying tension trembled in the space between them. Would this meeting disrupt the fragile alliance they had just started to build? The night lay heavy before them, a mix of commitment and doubt, leaving Sarah to confront her internal compass. Could she navigate this new trajectory? Or would it expose the cracks forming in their alliance, threatening the very foundation of what they hoped to achieve together? As Sarah stepped outside the cafe, a brisk wind whipped through the air, rattling her thoughts. The premature chill mirrored the apprehension brewing inside her. She glanced down at her phone, the screen still lit with her mentor's name, reminding her of the paths that could diverge from this moment. Was she ready to leave the budding partnership with Jessica vulnerable? Hey Sarah. Her mentor's voice cut through her thoughts, reverberating with a mix of encouragement and expectation, as she answered the call. Great to hear from you. I wanted to catch up on your latest initiative. There's potential here for something impactful. His enthusiasm was infectious, but in the back of her mind, a nagging fear loomed. What if pursuing this opportunity meant surrendering what she was trying to build with Jessica? Yes, I appreciate that, she replied, trying to sound composed. But I actually have something more pressing on my plate. The uncertainty hung in the air as she decided whether to reveal her partnership with Jessica, or keep this part of her journey private for now. Come on, you know I've always got your back, right? He said, urging her to open up. I'm forming a new venture to help struggling businesses, she finally confessed, her words landing heavily between them. It's a lot of work and I'm not even sure it will work out. Her voice wavered, reflecting the back and forth of her thoughts. That's bold, Sarah. But tell me, how does that align with your goals? He asked, dissecting her intentions with surgical precision. His question struck deep. Did this venture align with her ambition? Or was she merely deflecting her own insecurities by focusing on Jessica's problems? Look, I've always been good at nonprofit work, but diving into a full-time initiative requires a different level of commitment. The vulnerability soaked her words. I'm worried I'll pull too much away from my strengths. Are you afraid of failing? He probed, driving the nail deeper. Maybe, she admitted, then paled at the realization of her own hesitance. Or perhaps I'm afraid of building my dreams on shaky ground. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. But weigh your risks and know that it can go wrong, he reminded her, his tone shifting to a mentor's edge. You can't predict every outcome, but you can prepare yourself. She wrestled with his advice, trying to mold it into something productive. The clock started ticking in her mind, its sound rendering her scrutiny even more urgent. If they succeeded, could they pioneer a new wave of support for local businesses? But if they failed, would they lose something vital in the process? Can you imagine what you could do for others, Sarah? That's what you need to focus on, he countered. His words a lifebuoy as she began to drown in her doubt. Right. Impact, she murmured, 3 syllables dancing on her tongue. She felt her heart quicken. The prospect of shaping a future ignited a light within her. As the call wound down, Sarah stood outside the cafe, her breath visible in the crisp air. She had to confront what this all meant. Returning to Jessica, would she find the strength to be honest about her fears? Would she express the depth of her own ambition without overshadowing the fragility of Jessica's situation? Walking back inside, she caught Jessica's gaze, eyes still shaded in uncertainty, but shimmering with the promise of a shared venture. What if they aligned their visions, intertwining their insights to forge a path forward together? But then a shadow fell over her resolve. What if pursuing her mentor's advice meant taking risks that could expose both their vulnerabilities? As their newly merged plans occupied her thoughts, Sarah faced a reality tinged with both excitement and anxiety. Okay, she began, steeling herself to share the weight of her conversation. We need to talk about our next steps and what this means for both of us. Before she could elaborate, the cafe door swung open, and a familiar figure stepped in, their eyes zeroing in on Jessica. The tension escalated as anxiety skittered through Sarah. Would this incident shatter the foundation they were cautiously building? What lay ahead for them was unclear. She was gripped tightly by uncertainty and desire to forge something meaningful with Jessica. This defining moment could unravel everything, or it could mark a turning point. The question lingered. What hidden dynamics would test their partnership next? Sarah inhaled sharply as the figure entered, her instincts flaring. It was Jennifer, Jessica's estranged sister, an unpredictable wildcard in an already delicate situation. She hadn't seen Jennifer since the family fallout, and the tension radiating from the doorway made Sarah's heart race. This was not how she envisioned the discussion with Jessica unfolding. Jessica said, her voice trailing off into an uneasy silence. The air thickened around them. Sarah felt the sudden need to act, to shift the focus away from the awkward reunion. We were just about to discuss our plans. Maybe you'd like to join us? She suggested, her tone an attempt to weave unity from the discomfort. Jennifer's eyes flicked to Sarah, then back to Jessica, evaluating the landscape of emotions. I think I've heard enough of your plans, Jess. Apparently you've decided to give up on what matters. That venture of yours, she said, gesturing vaguely, can't possibly fill the void you've created. Jessica's expression darkened at the words, her hurt evident. Sarah's discomfort morphed into a sense of urgency. This was not merely about business, it was about salvaging Jessica's emotional footing. She could feel the weight of Jennifer's past decisions pressing down on them all, and she was determined not to let the family strife derail everything they started. Look, Jennifer, Sarah interjected, this isn't the place for old grievances. Let us focus on what we're trying to build here for the community. Jennifer's laughter was sharp, a cruel edge that sliced through Sarah's optimism. You think your little project will save her? You really underestimate the damage we've done to each other. It stung, a reminder that beneath Jessica's vulnerability lay unresolved issues that could unravel their budding partnership. As Jessica's gaze darted between the two, Sarah realized she needed to prioritize their connection. The stakes had been raised dramatically. Maintaining Jessica's confidence while addressing Jennifer's claims became her immediate priority. Jessica, you've shown an incredible capacity for growth. Whatever happened before, we can redefine the future. Jennifer scoffed, rolling her eyes. And what makes you think that building a business model will magically fix things? You can't just gloss over family problems with some charity work. The tension skyrocketed, and Sarah felt the panic rise within her. We're not just glossing over anything, we're aiming to empower others. It's about creating tangible change. Her voice trembled slightly as she fought to keep control over the spiraling conversation. A flicker of determination ignited in Jessica's eyes, and Sarah seized the moment. What we're embarking on isn't just about fixing broken relationships. It's about building resilience both in ourselves and in the businesses counting on us. Don't you see the potential here, Jess? Jennifer's expression shifted, confusion mingling with resentment, creating an opening for Sarah's next move. Imagine a future where we can both support ourselves and take back what we've lost. That's what this venture offers us. For a moment, Jessica's vulnerability flickered with hope, as if Sarah had touched on something deep within her. Then Jennifer scoffed again, but this time with less force. The protective demeanor began to falter against the possibilities Sarah presented. Don't be naive, Jennifer shot back, though her retort lacked its former bite. Sarah pressed forward, seeing a glimmer of resolve forming in Jessica. Naive or not, we have to take a chance. You have the strength, Jess. You just need to remember that. Jessica straightened, her gaze narrowing as she absorbed Sarah's words. I want to believe that, but I need more than just hopes pinned on a project, she said softly. This was a pivotal moment and Sarah could feel it in her bones. They stood at the edge of revelation, the future curving sharply before them, demanding choices laden with weight. What would they create together, or would the past swallow them both? As Jennifer huffed and crossed her arms, the tension thickened once again. It was uncertain whether their raw emotions would yield to newfound strength, or if the fractures would widen. But Sarah understood one crucial truth. They had to confront the past to build a future. That realization strapped a heavy burden onto her shoulders, yet also triggered a slight spark of determination. She wasn't about to back down. The next steps were vital, and she sensed that only through confronting the turmoil of their histories could they find solid footing. With resolve cementing in her chest, Sarah turned back toward Jessica, ready to face whatever revelations were still to come. They weren't just about to make plans, they were about to confront their demons, and the repercussions would be unsettling and profound. Who would emerge stronger, and what sacrifices would they need to make? As the tension hung like a thick veil over the room, Sarah watched Jessica absorb her words, astutely aware of the emotional barricade that had been erected by years of pain. This felt like a critical juncture not just for Jessica, but for herself as well. The whirlwind of the moment reminded her of the stakes involved. She wasn't merely advocating for a project. She was seeking a path toward personal growth amidst familial chaos. Jessica, she said, lowering her voice to a softer, more intimate pitch. It's clear we have a lot to untangle here. But this venture isn't just some distraction. It could provide both of us a chance to redefine who we are moving forward. A flicker of something akin to hope danced in Jessica's eyes, yet it was quickly masked by doubt. But at what cost, Sarah? Do you think agreeing to work with Jennifer will magically fix me? This isn't a fairy tale. Sarah took a deep breath, recognizing the gravity of Jessica's words. I know it won't be easy, but facing our truths often serves as the best footing for resolutions. Perhaps what's necessary now is a bit of brutal honesty about who we are and what we want. Jennifer's stance wavered, her arms wrapped tightly around herself beginning to loosen. For a brief moment, they were not two women in a bitter standoff, but three individuals caught in a web of shared histories. Three women whose stories were now interwoven through their fractured relationships. "Sarah," Jennifer interrupted, her voice laced with a rare vulnerability. "You speak of courage and empowerment, but the real battle is deeper. I don't even know where to begin." "Then let us begin from the start," Sarah urged. "What do you want?" Jennifer blinked, her skeptical facade slipping slightly. "What I want? I want my sister back. But how do I bridge that gap? Perhaps instead of focusing on the gap, we should focus on building a bridge," Sarah proposed, feeling the intensity of the moment surge within her. The thought of moving from hurt to healing spurred her on. She was beginning to see a path illuminated by cooperation rather than resentment. "Why should I trust you?" Jennifer questioned, the defensive tone creeping back into her voice. "Because I'm here, right now," Sarah replied, fighting the sinking sensation in her stomach. "Trust is something we have to build together. Just like this venture." Jessica's gaze shifted back to Sarah, and Sarah saw the flicker of understanding spark back to life. "Is this really about the business anymore? Or is it about us?" "Both," Sarah insisted gently. "What's personal will ripple into the professional. Each conversation we have reshapes our future. Each challenge is an opportunity for growth." Sarah could feel the earth shift beneath them, uncertain but promising. They could either remain tethered to their past or step together into uncharted territory. Jennifer shifted her weight, easing her rigid stance. "Maybe you're right. I want to be involved not just as a sister, but as someone who could bring something valuable to the table." Sarah's heart raced, the implication of those words sinking in. They had reached a moment of potential transformation, but the foundation still felt precarious. "Let us acknowledge our history and forge forward. Recognize the past but don't allow it to dictate our future," Sarah encouraged, feeling a flicker of optimism. But as Jennifer nodded slowly, Sarah couldn't shake the weight of doubt that remained. Would they really be able to untangle their emotions without collateral damage? This venture might break us or forge us anew, but that uncertainty is part of the risk, Sarah contemplated, searching their faces for a sign of commitment. "Agreed," Jessica murmured, her voice barely audible, yet filled with a surprising determination. The acknowledgement hung in the air, palpable and heavy, but also propelled by something akin to newfound hope. They were not only on the path to professional development, they were standing on the threshold of personal evolution, but it was a dangerous precipice. Just then the phone buzzed on the table, breaking the moment. Sarah felt a sharp pang in her gut as she glanced at the screen. It was a message from her mentor, one that would undoubtedly require her attention, pulling her away from this critical discussion. Realizing the stakes were multifaceted, she took a deep breath, standing poised before two sisters grappling with their past. "I need to see what this is about," she announced, the urgency in her tone palpable. "Please hold on to this moment. We'll pick this up soon. But know it's time to face the truths that bind us." With that, Sarah stepped back towards her phone, aware that the next call could serve as both a distraction and a test of their newfound resolve. Yet, deep within her core, she understood that true development blended action with openness, and the path forward would not be without its challenges. As she readied herself to answer, a lurking question loomed in the recesses of her mind. What unforeseen pressures would this new development reveal about her own ambitions and her role in this intricate emotional tapestry? As Sarah stepped away, the phone pressed against her ear. She felt a fissure splitting the atmosphere in the room. Her mentor's voice was urgent, yet a thread of serenity wove through it, reminding her of the delicate balance required in both professional and personal realms. "We need to discuss your project," he urged. "There are complications I didn't foresee." Complications? The word echoed unsettlingly in her mind. She instinctively closed her eyes, breathing deeply. This was a pivotal moment, an opportunity to navigate her tangled emotions, while remaining committed to the work ahead. She had already wrestled with doubt and uncertainty. She couldn't bear to fall back into those shadows now. "Could you hold the line for just a moment?" she responded, mindful of the emotional weight simmering behind her. In the dimness of the hallway, her resolve crystallized. Her path was not merely about the business, it was a crucible meant to shape and mature her into someone capable of leading both the venture and her fractured familial dynamics. Sarah. Her mentor's voice cut through her thoughts, and she opened her eyes to focus on the conversation. Right, yes, she regrouped. What's the issue? As he outlined the bureaucratic entanglements, Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. This wasn't merely about logistical flaws. It was a reflection of her own insecurities surfacing once again. Each obstacle felt like a mirror, reflecting her fears of inadequacy in professional settings, couched within her need to lead. Was she truly ready for this? Or was she standing behind the veil of her hope, too blinded to see her limitations? Sarah. Her mentor's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. You must own this project. Step up. You have the insight, now you need the conviction. His words struck a chord, ringing of truth and urgency. She needed conviction, yes, and not just in her business dealings but in navigating her relationship with Jessica and Jennifer. This venture was tied to their redemption arc. But first, she had to confront her own fears and inadequacies. Each moment spent attempting to reassure the sisters would build her own foundation of self-trust. She acknowledged this crucial element to her professional evolution without hesitation. You're right. I will take ownership. But I need clarity on our next steps. As they exchanged plans to tackle the logistical problems head-on, she felt each commitment fortifying her resolve. Clarity was a powerful tool not just in business, but in mending familial bonds as well. She took a mental note, feeling a surge of determination. The stakes had become clearer, and she wasn't prepared to let doubt dictate her future. When she finally ended the call, the sound of her heartbeat seemed louder in the silence. She returned to the room where Jessica and Jennifer were still poised on the brink of what felt like an emotional breakthrough. With renewed confidence, Sarah cleared her throat, drawing their attention. I'm back, she declared, meeting their eyes with resolve. Let us talk about where we go from here. We're not just untangling our past. We're weaving together a future. Jessica, still grappling with uncertainty, was poised to retreat into her shell again. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll learn, Sarah countered decisively, echoing her mentor's lesson. True growth comes from trial and error. We must allow ourselves the space to figure things out as we go together. She could see their hesitation, but as she placed her hand firmly on the table, it was clear she was not backing down. This was a pivotal moment for them all, and it demanded both vulnerability and strength, the merging of personal and professional stakes. Just as Jessica was about to retort, a sudden commotion outside drew their attention, causing Sarah's heart to skip. The frantic whispers and hurried footsteps echoed of impending trouble. But what was it? Sarah's pulse quickened as her instincts kicked in. She would have to navigate this unexpected development with the same courage she sought to foster within their dialogue. Whatever awaited them outside could not only alter the trajectory of their venture, but the fragile ties they were attempting to mend. Confrontation awaited, and how they responded would determine not just the viability of their business but the very fabric of their relationships. Would this moment bring the sisters closer together, or pull them further apart? As the noise escalated outside, Sarah felt a heavy wave of anxiety crash over her. She could see Jessica and Jennifer share a fleeting glance. Was it fear or anticipation? Whatever was brewing in that liminal space just beyond the door, it was critical they confronted it together, not as estranged siblings, but as a united front. Stay close, Sarah urged, injecting her voice with an authority that belied her internal turbulence. The sisters nodded, their expressions shifting from apprehension to a determination mirrored in Sarah. Pushing open the door, they stepped into the bustling hallway where chaos unfolded, people hurriedly murmuring, casting worried glances towards the exit. A taller figure emerged from the crowd, flanked by a couple of aides, clearly agitated. Sarah recognized him immediately. He was a local housing authority representative, notorious for his no-nonsense approach. Miss Parker, he called, his voice cutting through the ruckus, eyes zeroing in on Sarah. The very mention of her name sent a ripple of worry through her. I need to discuss a serious issue regarding your project and its compliance with zoning regulations. Her heart raced as she recalled the regulatory hurdles they had narrowly sidestepped to get to this point. Tremors of doubt danced at the edges of her resolve. Had they overlooked something critical? Of course, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Can we discuss this privately? There's no time for that, he replied curtly, voice mounting in urgency. The matter is pressing. especially given that there's a potential violation. We're facing complaints that could lead to some serious penalties and ultimately derail your project. Her stomach churned at the implication. Suddenly, pangs of pressure returned from their earlier discussion. Could she truly lead in a situation so fraught with risk? Yet, as she looked at her sisters, their wide eyes might have held darkness, but they radiated something else. Faith. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself. Let us sit down. I want to hear all the specifics before we move forward. They retreated to the small conference room, and Sarah motioned for her mentor, who had been lingering at the edges of the crowd, to join. Vulnerability was never her strong suit, but this circumstance demanded transparency and collaboration. As they gathered, she caught a glimpse of Jennifer biting her lip. Anxiety etched across her brows, mirroring her own doubts. Here's the situation, the representative began, laying out the facts without theatrics. Each word felt like a weight added to her shoulders. The issue stemmed from a misunderstanding around the property lines. It was enough of a gray area that wild speculation was allowed to flourish. People were talking about potential hazardous conditions beyond her control, as he explained. Sarah's mind buzzed with strategies to mitigate the fallout. The thought of losing everything they worked for left a bitter taste. But beneath that fear, another realization started to unfurl, a recognition of her power in finding solutions. This hurdle could either impede or galvanize them, and she felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. Explain to us why the zoning classifications are complex here, she prompted, her tone now deliberate. The authority began relaying specific regulations, and Sarah's mind shifted into high gear. She understood the undercurrents of bureaucracy. This was her battleground. With each detail shared, she realized that she possessed a burgeoning authority of her own, one that had been dormant but was now bubbling to the surface. It was the same authority she needed to apply within her family dynamic. Guiding Jessica and Jennifer needed to be just as strategic. They were interconnected pathways, leading to her overall success. By the meeting's conclusion, Sarah had outlined a course of action involving new assessments and community outreach. Confidence coursed through her, propelled by the camaraderie of inclusivity, and before the man left, she doubled down on her leadership. This isn't just a challenge, it's an opportunity for us to re-engage with our community, she asserted. And we can turn this around. As the representatives departed, Sarah turned to her sisters. Time had shifted in the conference room. They felt more like allies than rivals. Now we get to take charge. This is about more than a project. It's about us building something together, confronting what lies ahead with strength. Just as a sense of camaraderie began to solidify, Jessica voiced what had been left unsaid. But what if it's too late? We can't afford for this to fail. Sarah felt an unease tighten her chest again. Outside the walls that hemmed them in, the world seemed to breathe with possibilities and threats alike. She knew Jessica's fear stemmed not just from the financial risks, but the emotional toll. Jessica had the most to lose, and those stakes made her hesitant. Let us not underestimate our ability to adapt. Remember, we did this together once before. We can do it again. Just then, Jennifer's voice slipped through a crack in the uncertainty. What if we don't just fix this but emerge stronger? What's the plan for the next steps? Sarah felt a surge of purpose. Perhaps the confrontation with the housing authority had opened a door, exposing not just challenges but also their potential for growth. The bond shared amongst the sisters could become their greatest asset. As she prepared to speak, a notification pinged on her phone. One glance revealed a chilling message. Their father had contacted her, seeking a meeting. Tension and tumult in her chest swelled. This new development could shift everything they had just begun to forge amidst uncertainty. Would this lead to further fracture in familial ties or provide the clarity she madly craved? Only one certainty emerged: whatever lay ahead would demand every ounce of courage they had just discovered within themselves. The tension in the air was palpable as Sarah, Jessica, and Jennifer sat huddled together at the dimly lit, cluttered table of the cafe, minds racing with thoughts and emotions interwoven with the gravity of their new venture. The uncertainty that had once pulled them apart was now serving as a catalyst for their growth. They had faced the chaotic storm together and emerged, not unscathed but undeniably stronger. Sarah took a deep breath, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the adrenaline coursing through her veins. With renewed clarity, she focused on the emerging synergy among them. "We can turn this misstep into a stepping stone," she declared, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "Let us transform our setback into an actionable plan." A sense of determination replaced the earlier apprehension as her sisters looked up, the flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. They began to brainstorm, Sarah leading them through each potential obstacle and proposing practical solutions with a compelling vision that tightly knit together their personal and professional aspirations. She skillfully laid out strategies for community engagement and resource mobilization, weaving in the strengths each of them brought to the table. Jessica, despite her initial skepticism, found herself inspired, pointing out how their respective strengths could create a harmonious balance. "If we approach this as a true partnership, we can excel and perhaps even revolutionize the way we support our community," she proposed, her eyes lighting up as she envisioned the potential impact. Meanwhile, Jennifer reflected on the dynamics they had navigated, realizing how their unified vision could not only reinforce their business strategy, but allow for personal healing. "Imagine if we were able to mentor young entrepreneurs. This could reignite our family name and serve as a testament to overcoming adversity," she added, feeling a sense of pride stir within her as she contemplated a future built on empowerment rather than competition. As the three of them continued fabricating a plan, they drew upon their unique experiences, the struggles Sarah endured while managing 2 jobs, the successes Jessica had in networking, and the intuitive grasp of community needs Jennifer had developed. Each realization strengthened the budding bond, morphing their disparate experiences into a cohesive thread that could support others in their struggle. "This is what we've been searching for," Sarah exclaimed, her excitement contagious. The determination rising within her was a stark departure from the uncertainty she had carried only weeks prior. They had transformed individual battles into a shared mission, and with that they found solidified confidence, a sense that they were no longer operating in the shadows, but stepping boldly into the light. After hours of discussion, they finally settled on a structure that integrated their talents. They would create a nonprofit that focused on community resilience, targeted at providing mentorship and support for small businesses facing financial hardship, pulling from their own lived experiences. Throughout, they highlighted healing narratives. Every challenge they had faced and still faced would serve as the backbone of their mission. In that moment, Sarah felt a profound wave of validation wash over her. Recognition of her capabilities had transformed into a deep sense of self-acceptance. No longer did she feel enveloped in the shadows of her sister's achievements. She had achieved not only a breakthrough in her personal journey, but had helped cultivate a platform where their shared vulnerabilities could evolve into strengths. The next weeks burst forth with momentum. The launch day arrived, a culmination of hard work, energy, and a synergistic collaboration that felt triumphant. With the community gathered, Sarah stood before the crowd, her heart pounding, solid in her newfound confidence and purpose. She presented their vision, articulating not just a business plan, but a story of resilience, a narrative that spun from personal struggles, underscoring their commitment to building bridges in a fractured landscape. As she looked out into the sea of faces, she caught glimpses of her children beaming with pride. Riley held Max's hand, nodding with fervent belief in their mother. In that fleeting moment, she realized the true legacy she was creating. A model of fortitude and honesty for her kids. Feedback poured in, the community's enthusiasm palpable. People stood up to share their stories, to join the cause, to express gratitude for an opportunity to be part of something transformative. After the event, Jessica and Jennifer approached Sarah, their faces radiant. "We couldn't have done this without you," Jessica proclaimed, the weight of past misunderstandings slipping away, replaced with renewed sisterhood. Jennifer chimed in, "And it's only the beginning. Let us keep this momentum going." In that reconvened moment, Sarah understood that personal growth is not linear. It is intricately connected to the relationships we cultivate and nurture. They afforded her the recognition that came with community, and for the first time, she felt profoundly fulfilled not just in her professional achievements, but in her role as a sister and a mother. As the night drew to a close, Sarah took a moment before stepping into the chilly evening air, reflecting on the incredible transformation she had undergone. Once defined by their competitive shadows, they now stood side by side, forging a meaningful legacy brimming with purpose and empowerment. The challenges she had faced no longer felt insurmountable. Instead, they were parts of her journey, pieces that led her to a fulfilled and accomplished self. Sarah's heart swelled with a sense of pride, solid confidence rooted deeply in her achievements. What once felt like insurmountable obstacles had become milestones of growth, and standing there, she whispered a promise to herself. This was merely the beginning. She had carved a path that not only honored her past but fully embraced her future. Now it was your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to stay up to date on more exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your thoughts and reactions to this conclusion, sharing your personal reflections. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful personal transformation can truly be.